They have built quite the defense in their base. They are scared of you now.
Oh, that's some emotional damage you must have done, Tom.
The best part about that is...
This is AllReasonNoLogic's road to OS 25. Join us as Tom battles to double his OS starting at 12. Hit subscribe and leave your comments and tips. To the battlefield commanders.
Welcome back to the road to skill rating 25. Today Tank Tom is out to make a statement. We're heading to Sulphur Springs, a diagonally mirrored map with brutal pressure point at the bottom left, and Tom's gunning to be the dominant force this time, after we've been on his back about stepping up in these games in preparation for higher OS lobbies. He's looking to control the flow, dictate the pace, and show that he can do more than just hold his own. Let's see if he can turn that early pressure he knows into a decisive win.
Sulphur Springs is a very interesting map where you've got all of your positions moving out from the bottom left-hand corner, which means that you're going to have some very close competitions as well as some long by land and a particularly long by sea route. It's a nice mix of naval combat and open map to play with. Lots of expansion areas, some hotly contested geo positions and mexes in the middle, as well as many areas for attacks, though there are some limitations. I do believe that a few of these land bridges cannot be crossed by things like ticks, so you're definitely going to have to play tactical with those slightly bigger units. Definitely means some of that early aggression by Tank Tom might slow down for this one, though as saying that, we do see some ticks going straight across the rivers, so I might just be wrong about the land bridges and just the little bits of ocean between the main continents.
There you go. That gives a bit of an illustration to where these ticks can go. There is definitely some limitations, but there are points that they can get across where it must be very shallow. So the
I find with this map, the closest competition, in this case between the green player and the red player, usually it helps to shape the flow of this match. Whichever one gains an advantage, or if it holds in the middle, definitely it seems to help the team out a fair bit. But if it goes beyond the middle, the middle game, it's the early game, and it is certainly going to come down to a contest for that continent.
It's interesting here, Icy Tempest, going into vehicles, I would personally go bots being so close to the opposition in this position here, because you want to be able to get as many units out as possible and put that early pressure on. So Tom, I'm thinking that the game is probably a little bit more in the favor of your opposition. The two highest OS at 32 and 28 on the other team. You have a 27, and then your next highest is 23. Yourself there at 19 with Cyan, only 2 chevs. You've also got a 1 chev, and the opposition only has one chev. So yeah, the balance is, say, not perfect.
Yeah, we're probably at the disadvantage here, although you can see we've got the map control coming out already.
Yeah, aggression. I like aggression.
Our 3 players have got units to that front line. Is that the Wolf managing to get in? Not going to do huge amounts, but it's going to do some work. And at this stage of the game, if you can wipe out most of the energy in a couple of mexes, it sets them back by the couple of minutes. And when you're only 3.5 minutes into the game, a couple of minutes is quite a long time.
Very
Speaking
nicely
of setting
done.
players back, your green air player has just managed to snipe the one fighter that was in the sky from yellow, and take out the construction con for the yellow player. That really does hurt, and it was all down to some good micro.
Speaking of that early aggression, I've got a force of pawns and a tick out on that far right hand side. So I've seen that the orange commander isn't in his base, because I saw him walking out to those mexes. So I'm basically charging on in at this point.
That's a very interesting LLT wall that he's building. You can definitely see that that one chev is certainly showing their teeth.
There should be some good damage. I wouldn't be surprised if we see the second base wipe, Wolf doing it on the left. of the screen at the moment, and now you're there taking out all of the wind, almost all the mexes so far, and there is a Centurion there, which we want to see you avoid.
In fact, I don't want to see you just avoid it. I want to see you bypass that base and go somewhere else.
Yeah, and you can see that I've started to walk away. I've done enough damage there that they're going to basically have to reset themselves. And now I'm finding the air player, which is fun.
Yeah. Although we do have a fighter
And
coming
look at that,
through.
the green player's fighter
That
is
is
in
on the
there
ball.
taking out these shurikens. That is an expensive pass. And it does look like you may actually... Oh, that one shuriken... Or 2 shurikens left. That could have been a free unit right there.
Hey, but you got 5 more coming in. And there are only 3 shurikens, so by rights, I mean, they could freeze all of them if microed correctly. You might be able to take out this constructor. Are you here, though? Are you here? You are not. Yes, you are. He's looking for that purple cursor on the screen.
I'm splitting my focus to try and get the build power and the energy that's on that base.
I always like to prioritize killing those constructors because that just means there is not a constructor out there capturing mexes.
It's a decent walk out there. So I think the plan was that I'll come back and clean that up with the next wave of units that comes in.
So these 2 shuriken, I just want to point out to people, they've just gone a fight command onto these and they'll lock onto one unit, whichever one's closest. If you select the shuriken and hold down A and then drag out a circle like that, it will actually cycle through the whole army they're against, so everything's going to get paralyzed at some point.
Does look like a very good amount of early damage out of you, Tank Tom, and that has allowed your team to secure very strong positioning on the continent in the middle. Does look like the vehicle play as well for your closest player is somewhat paying off. The Whistlers have been left somewhat unopposed, and they are just dueling with some Rocketeers. With the state of the game as it is right now, the green team just holding at the middle line is definitely a win in of itself because of all that aggression and even bombers coming down
all across the board. That's a very nice dominance. Even the naval player slightly further forward, so really nicely done. We'll see if your team can hold that out. Looking at
the top right of the screen while we're looking at that little engagement there, we do have the incomes right now, and we've got the blue team almost 50% ahead in energy, and almost 100% ahead in metal, just because of taking that middle ground. But it does look like a flanking attack is going to be the first to make ground fall on the blue side, but there is plenty here to clean it up, so long as it's all controlled well. One of the big weaknesses right here is this clumped up wind. If just a couple of them had been taken out, they all would have popped. The converters going and just a couple of those pawns breaking through, and the chase a little bit slow on that side. But nothing too crazy just here, and easily enough to recover. This is the one downside of these slow Whistlers. They have absolutely no ability to respond to those rapid attacks, and now that they've been pulled back and out of position, the rocket bots are able to take out some of the defenses and are going to be on the push as well.
Okay, that one's just stop being micro there. Nicely done by red, getting around, probably not resetting green, but definitely hurting them.
Just remember, if your attention is going to be pulled away, make sure to grab the units that you have doing stuff and either set them on a command that's going to pull them out of danger, or just set them on a command that's going to run them into where you want them, so that they aren't just sitting APM stalled somewhere. That is never something you want for units in the back line, unless they are hiding for later use.
Being up against these bots here, I like what I can see in the construction queue for Icy Tempest. He does have Janus sitting there ready to be built. And we want to see them out because they're going to be what stops the units pushing. For Gentleman Sloth, being against these Whistlers, I would actually be going into mass pawns. Just getting a bunch of pawns out and rushing them. These are going to die very easily. There's no LLTs here either. Let's just check out his player view. Yeah, you can see there's nothing else on the icons. I mean, he might not know what those icons are, but you can see there's definitely units moving around, and yeah, that's a couple energy. Tom, let's go back and check in on you.
Looking back at the player that you've harassed, actually, is probably the most interesting point. They have built quite the defense in their base. They are scared of you now.
Oh, that's some emotional damage you must have done, Tom.
The best part about that is you can go around it, get to all the eco, and work your way from the back forward, and not have to deal with those defenses.
Yeah, that may
But
be.
yeah, that
that'd
is
be a thumbnail,
definitely
maybe.
enough to stop a T1 push.
I mean, unless that
I don't
T1
blame him. I
pushes.
think you've spent the first half of the game living in his base.
Well, what is sad though is a
Yeah.
single Rocketeer could take this out. All right,
Yeah, and whilst
Tom.
this is going on, we've got the commander in the middle surrounded. We've got the Rocketeers from a couple of different players. And at this point, we're basically just on the march. Depending on how well he does as to how long he lives.
Yeah, keeping that energy drained by putting that commander on hidden. Does he have a storage? He does, so at least he can keep it hidden somewhat when that energy builds up. I'd be trying to jump back and degun these. Duck, dive, dodge and weave is not working out too well. We're down to 13%, down to 3, and I think he knows he's going down. Really nicely done there, Tom. Good work by yourself and PamX.
Tom, I'm seeing that you've done the naughty right now. You are building a T2 lab, you're stalled out on metal, but you haven't eaten your T1 lab on the front line that's building ticks.
Yes, I moved my lab from the base to the front so that I could have those ticks largely to see if it had things that were about to push out to us. And I probably should have eaten it to get the T2 lab back up and running.
That's a lot of Shuris.
I mean, I
that
don't
was the
blame the
logic.
yellow player. The yellow player's been having to be on the defensive this entire time, and if you look at the state of C, your blue players, the highest OS on your team, is doing quite well against the good old stump juggins.
The knock-on effect of this orange player not producing units means that you've been able to push into this brown lane with the lime green color. Meant that the cyan player, the cyan player has been able to push with the wolf into this cream player, leaving just a one-on-one here in the corner. So we're seeing, as soon as one player is not contributing units, you're seeing a case of at least one situation of 2 versus 1, and that's currently happening here, leaving 1 versus 1.
We've seen of
You're
that
finally fixing an issue up next to where your positioning is. You've known about this mechs for quite a while, your frontline position. You've known about this mechs for quite a while, and only just now are you working your way in to take them. You've left orange with those for a good solid 8 minutes without taking those.
Yeah, I definitely should have sent something through there. One of the side effects of pushing into that orange base and having yellow provide the shurikens for support means that I've now basically got ticks roaming through things to keep those shurikens busy, which means that the air player isn't doing too much. Air player's done a reasonable job of having those couple of skirmishing runs. They've done a couple of some bombing runs and things. So they've actually had a decent effect on the game so far, but the yellow player has been on the defensive with their air the entire time.
You can see here there's only one player on the opposite team going into T2, which is their tech player, Pink here, Zwadi now in T2. Everyone else T1, whereas your team, 3 players that are either on T2 or building it at the moment.
Looking at the map, Pink is one of the few players that hasn't been ravaged yet.
And they do also get access to that geo, which is a nice, strong start for the tech player. And looking at the incomes at the moment, the difference has actually shrunk between the two teams, even with the massive control. The red team has been scaling it quite nicely, though it is going to start booming in your favor as those T2 economies start coming online.
Oh yeah.
You're keeping the scouting going. I see you're going into a fusion. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the reason for this would be because you have dominant control of the front line. You don't feel the need that you need to continuously push. You are wanting to scale while you're safe.
So because I've known that we've gone in and done a whole bunch of damage, I've got some scouts in there to confirm that they don't have more coming out. The left side of the map has got a solid push going on, which is going to keep the team busy for the next couple of minutes. So I've got an opportunity here to be able to start scaling some of that eco to then be able to come rolling through with a decent T2 wave rather than having a handful of units that I'm trying to bust through with.
That's actually quite an interesting point to raise. From this position in your team, exactly what is the right call here? Because going eco does give them the opportunity to come back, but if you're ahead, if you get far enough ahead in eco, you essentially secure the game. As compared to throwing a couple of T2 units in could definitely punch straight through orange. It could very easily punch through the brown player, get to pink, get to yellow. I don't think that would be too difficult, but it does certainly have its risks attached to it. I think those are risks that I would probably take, but I also would take those risks. I also would have taken those risks when Blue was still back at the Geo Island. Now that they're right into the back of into the back and starting to get ready to do eco damage, I think that you've made the right call here, getting that fusion up just so that you can completely secure the game. However, you need to put that build power down. You've got 1,000 energy, which means that you can fund which means that building into a fusion, you can fund at least 5 to 10 construction turrets, and you did have a lot of metal. I swear you just had a lot of metal.
This is interesting. We do have Pink Sweaty sending out some welders, and if they only kept that push going, they probably would have taken out your forward lab. They are putting them there, obviously defensively, waiting for those pushes. What we do often see with Beyond All Reason games is that what you were talking about just then, Prey, the blue team could have heavily pushed into T1, and then maybe T2 could have come out in a big way from the red team, but it's likely not going to beat the numerous T1 units. Alternatively, going into eco meant that maybe there'd be a pushback, but then that eco would then result in a bit of a tennis match. You'd see a swing back in the favour of your team. So I think it's a win-win.
Red's
We should
com
be doing at this point
Where is
is
Red's
using my lab to get that fusion up and running.
Oh, here we go, gentlemen sloth. Going gangbusters.
If you're in a bad position, this is a phenomenally good thing to do with a com.
If you're about to lose it, you might as well take something out with it.
Yeah.
That's a base. That's a base for a cost of a com. That's excellent.
Yeah, nice move.
And not only that, he got the D-guns on the labs, he got the D-guns on a bunch of the different things, which means that there's going to be significantly less reclaim than the cost of that com. That is the sort of move that you love to see out of an OS 32 player. They recognized a gap and they took it.
Commander has died.
Not much on the front line for the red player though, with this gunslinger healing slowly. That's the main unit. Going into a couple more of those by the looks of things. So I know we've got sharpshooters coming out off of not much energy. Do we have any geos? No, we don't. They're not built.
You
Looks
know,
like we've got an
despite the strong start out of your team's air player, they do seem to have dropped, and air control has been ceded almost entirely to the yellow player. They definitely could have done something with this.
Yeah,
there is very, very little that could have been done to stop this if they'd sent in a bombing wave. I'm just noticing that now.
Yeah,
Actually
all
had
of
a
those
player drop
scouts
out
that
of
have
your
just
team.
been over.
Who has left? Oh, the tech player left.
The air player.
Oh, the air player left. And
The green air player left.
Yeah, they did
Yeah,
too.
because there was a dark green earlier.
You are right. Where to focus? I'm seeing a pushback here onto these heavily defended.
All the LLTs matched for naught.
Oh, and they just exploded. Oh, that was bad. See that chain
Put your
reaction?
converters next to things that you want to keep.
This genuinely is a new player mistake. This player has evidently been jumping into some 8v8s. They've gotten their OS up to 21, but they haven't learned some of the core fundamental lessons of bar. That being not to bunch everything up right next to each other. The line of LLTs that he built, if you attack the middle couple and they both explode, they will actually chain react down the line. I don't know if they'll self-propagate, but I do know that they do a lot of damage when they die next to each other. And pumping all of your eco into one nice L shape, it looks phenomenal, and I totally get why you would do that. But unfortunately, it doesn't quite work out in bar where things have an explosion or radius.
We talked about finding the gap and taking it before for the red player. Tom has done the same with 3 welders, just bypassed Cream's base, gone into the back of Red's base and taken out almost all of their energy. Nicely done.
That is cost efficiency right there. And that's going to put Red in an absolutely terrible position because they now, with the loss of those mexes, they're only at 21 metal income, and they're trying to produce off of a T1 and a T2 lab at the same time. If you compare that to the green player is only at plus 19 because they don't control the extra mexes, but they don't have any T2 mexes, it doesn't look like, but they are producing T1 units and they will be able to out spam them. They also have the support from another player with the Medusas, though fighting into a gunslinger, so that's going to be quite the painful.
You know, despite the probably the lower OS, if you add them all up for your team, Tom, you've been, I wouldn't say lucky, it's been well coordinated. Everyone was aggressive on your team, and that's what's won the game. At no point did this main island get controlled by the red team at all, and that is almost everyone dead. Just the red player with a few snipers now left in their lane. Tom, you're there in a big way.
One of the nice things with this game was that basically every push there was more than one color involved.
Teamwork.
Like other than those first couple of ones, once we got control of that middle island, it was then a couple of players basically pushing in together, and you can see that across the map now. Basically every army's got a couple of colors in it, and we've been able to, if not necessarily win the fronts, we've been able to work our way around those to then swing in and with a couple of units take out the economies, which then means that those fronts can't continue to get supported.
Yeah.
And they can't replenish their fronts anymore. It only becomes a matter of time before what is their falls, and then it's basically all over Red Rover.
I am, despite you did phenomenally this game, I'm still going to pick on something because it's just me. That's what I do.
I'm going to pick on it too.
You dedicated into snipers.
4,000 metal in the bank.
Oh, that. I wasn't even looking at the eco. Okay, two things. So economy, obviously you need the build power there. Also going into snipers, such a slow unit. I'd have almost gone sprinters, or at the least hounds or gunslingers, just to get them over onto the front line doing damage faster. Nicely done though.
And there we go, and a whole team going aggressive, showing just the power of being in pole position and assisting your buddies. We see it in AI games where all of the AI players gang up on one weak point. In this case, you managed to achieve it in the game, and it helped free up lanes so that everyone could be super aggressive. Definitely did help with a couple of the matchups. Having a strong C versus a weak C definitely does help. And then, but losing your air player almost could have been a big problem, but unfortunately for the red team, they didn't capitalize on that loss. Let's have a look at those graphs and see exactly how we did in this one. Tank Tom, your damage done isn't the highest, not by a significant margin, but if you look at the early stage of the game, your damage is very competitive in the early stages, and your damage was being dealt against economies and against bases, which makes it very valuable.
Damage down here in this part of the graph is the same as seeing these lines up here, because it definitely affects doing this damage down here, even though it's not very high on the chart. It's the same as doing a lot of damage at the end of the game. You're making that huge difference. Your eco's looking pretty good through this, which is an improvement on the last game.
Yeah, I'm not down the bottom.
Yeah, very good scaling this game, so taking those notes from last time.
All right, everyone, we hope you enjoyed this one, and I'm pretty sure next one is going to be a pretty juicy game if it is the one that I'm thinking of. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Thanks for supporting Tank Tom on his road to OS. Like, subscribe, comment, join the Discord, and see us on the 50K event. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. We'll catch you next time.
See you guys.